Our plea went unheard, until humanity roared back sci-fi HFY stories. In the far reaches of space, a small and fragile species called the Illyrians were under constant attack by a vast interstellar council. Their worlds were being stripped, their homes destroyed, and their voices ignored. Every time they sent pleas for help, their messages vanished into the void, intercepted and dismissed as insignificant by larger and stronger civilizations. They watched silently as the Council crushed planets, feeling powerless and alone. On Earth, analysts in quiet control rooms noticed something unusual. Among the billions of signals passing through the networks of the solar observatories, one message stood out. It was different from any random burst of cosmic noise. It contained detailed records of mass destruction, strategies, and desperate calls for help. The humans stared at the screens, some in disbelief, some in fear. No one in the galaxy had ever directly asked for humanity's attention, and now a small species was doing exactly that, but the Council ignored them. The debate on Earth was long and tense. Some leaders argued that they should remain silent, keep observing, and not interfere in a war that was not theirs. Others felt a deep moral obligation to act. How could they remain idle while lives were destroyed, just because the rest of the galaxy refused to intervene? Civilian scientists and engineers joined the debate, adding evidence of the advanced Council fleets, their firepower, and the overwhelming scale of the attacks. Many pointed out that any human intervention would be small, almost meaningless against such massive forces. Despite the warnings, humanity decided to respond. But the response was not a declaration of war, nor a promise of protection. It was something simpler, something the Illyrians could understand clearly. The message transmitted across light years was short, 3 words: "We hear you." Back on the Illyrian worlds, the message arrived like a quiet whisper in a storm. Leaders stared at the screens, eyes wide with disbelief. No one had expected a reply from a young, distant species. There was no alliance, no offer of fleets or weapons, only the acknowledgement that someone else had listened. Some felt hope, others fear. They had waited decades, and now finally a small spark of recognition had arrived. The Interstellar Council, meanwhile, did not take the reply seriously. They saw Earth as a minor civilization, still divided and technologically immature. Their leaders laughed openly in chambers that spanned kilometers, mocking the idea that a species so small could influence their grand designs. "They do not even have fleets capable of leaving their system," one high-ranking officer said. "What can they possibly do to us?" Humanity, however, did not rush into confrontation. They quietly began to prepare. Old defense programs, long dormant, were reactivated. Civilian industries shifted to build ships, weapons, and supplies. Communication channels were secured, encrypted, and tested. Each action was deliberate and unseen by the rest of the galaxy. On Earth, no one spoke loudly of war, but every citizen felt the tension. The children playing in city streets, the engineers in laboratories, even the farmers tending fields, all were part of a planet preparing for a possible future where no one else would protect them. Meanwhile, Illyrian scouts reported movements of Council fleets near their borders. The attacks were becoming more aggressive, faster, and more coordinated. Entire cities disappeared in hours, yet they began to notice subtle changes in their sensors. Fleets that were supposed to be small patrols suddenly hesitated. Communications were scrambled as if someone was watching closely. The Illyrians could not explain why, but a new factor had entered the conflict: the unknown presence of humanity. On Earth, scientists monitored distant systems, tracking the Council fleets. They were careful, cautious, and patient. A Council admiral commented in a report that nothing of interest is happening here, but Earth continued to analyze, to plan, and to wait for the exact moment to act. Unlike other species, humanity did not rush. Their power did not rely solely on technology, but on understanding, strategy, and timing. Every calculation, every decision was meant to maximize efficiency and minimize unnecessary conflict. In the Illyrian capitals, hope and doubt intertwined. Would this distant, young species actually intervene? Or was the message just an illusion, a brief comfort before despair returned? Even so, the very act of acknowledgement strengthened the spirits of those under siege. Small rallies formed, defenses were reinforced, and whispers of resistance spread across the worlds. For the first time in generations, the Illyrians felt someone might listen, someone might care. As the part of the story unfolds, the tension in space grows. Human reconnaissance continues silently. Council fleets operate under the assumption that Earth is weak, and the Illyrians prepare for whatever comes next. In the cold dark between stars, all eyes are watching, all minds are calculating. A quiet signal has altered the balance of hope and fear. One simple phrase, "We hear you," has become the seed from which a storm may grow. Every person on Earth, from politicians to engineers, feels the weight of this new responsibility. They know the galaxy does not take them seriously. They know the Council believes humanity is irrelevant. Yet every action they take is deliberate, precise, and unseen. The quiet preparation continues, with hidden fleets moving through secure jump points, training simulations running in secret, and messages encrypted in ways even the most advanced alien technology could not easily break. The Illyrians watch, waiting for humanity to act. They have no proof that the humans are ready for war, only that they now exist as a force that the Council cannot ignore forever. Every destroyed city, every lost planet, every plea ignored by the galaxy is now seen through the eyes of someone who cares. In distant chambers aboard the Council's massive command stations, officials debate what to do about Earth. Some suggest ignoring it further, some propose investigation, and a few quietly fear that a species they had dismissed may have powers they do not understand. Little do they know, humans do not rely on brute force alone. Their strength lies in intelligence, patience, and the ability to unite a planet against threats. As Part 1 concludes, a new sense of suspense fills the galaxy. Humanity has sent its first message, quietly observed, and prepared in secret. The Illyrians wait with cautious hope. The Council continues its operations, unaware that the first ripples of a storm have begun. The quiet acknowledgement, "We hear you," may be the only warning the galaxy will receive before humanity makes its move. The galaxy laughed when Earth's reply arrived. Council officials gathered in their enormous halls, looking at the short message that had come from the young human world. They saw it as a joke, a sign of naivety. Humanity was small, divided, and technologically young. What could they possibly do against fleets that stretched across multiple star systems? They openly mocked the idea that humans could influence anything. Some even held holoviewers that projected Earth cities, showing modest planets and small spacecraft, laughing at the simplicity of the human defenses. Back on Earth, the leaders paid no attention to the mockery. They had expected it. The laughter of the powerful never concerned humans. What mattered was preparation, strategy, and resolve. Quietly, the human government ordered the activation of long-hidden programs. Old military projects, once shelved for budget reasons, were restarted. Civilian industries shifted overnight, factories producing vehicles, ships, and electronics. Every effort was deliberate, every resource carefully allocated. Humanity's goal was simple: to be ready for any eventuality, even if no one took them seriously. The Illyrians, watching from their hidden worlds, noticed the subtle changes in human activity. They detected strange signals, rapid construction, and fleet movements that suggested more than observation. Though they had no direct proof, the presence of humans began to inspire a faint glimmer of hope. Perhaps they were not alone. Perhaps someone would finally stand against the Council's cruelty. The Council continued its assaults on weaker species, intending to demonstrate their superiority. Entire planets were stripped of life in days, with fleets moving in precise coordination. But during these operations, Council officers noticed anomalies in their monitoring systems. Fleets moved unusually, communications were scrambled, and some patrols reported being shadowed by unidentifiable craft. For the first time, a sense of unease crept into the Council ranks. Something was changing in the galaxy, and it was not yet understood. Humanity's actions remained secretive. The fleets built in orbit were small but highly mobile, capable of striking and disappearing before being detected. Scientists developed new sensors, weapons, and defensive systems quietly. Engineers worked day and night, civilians contributed in any way possible. The planet itself became a hive of preparation. No announcements were made, no public celebrations. Every step was calculated, every resource used efficiently. The Illyrians began to organize their scattered defenses with renewed hope. While still small compared to the Council's forces, they were emboldened by the unseen presence of humanity. They trained warriors, fortified cities, and prepared evacuation plans. Small victories, once impossible, were now conceivable. The message from Earth had done more than signal concern. It had sparked the belief that resistance was possible. Council officials debated the message. Some insisted on ignoring it, calling it insignificant. Others proposed sending reconnaissance fleets to study Earth's capabilities. Few voices, quiet but present, suggested caution. The Council had always underestimated young civilizations, and history had rarely punished them. This time, however, a small seed of doubt began to take root. Human reconnaissance continued quietly. Ships moved through secret routes, sensors monitored Council movements, and plans were made for contingencies. Every decision was methodical. Humanity was patient, willing to wait until the exact moment to act. They understood that impulsive action would invite disaster, and that the galaxy would never take them seriously unless they demonstrated strategic mastery. The Illyrians felt the subtle presence of Earth's influence. Patrols reported unknown craft that appeared briefly, observing the Council's operations without engaging. Cities under siege received minor interventions that delayed destruction. While humans did not openly fight yet, the Illyrians began to sense that someone somewhere was watching and preparing. Their fear was mixed with anticipation. Perhaps their prayers had been heard after all. As the days passed, Earth's preparation continued. Fleets grew in secret, technologies advanced, and strategies were rehearsed. Civilian populations participated in ways both visible and hidden. Every calculation considered not just force but diplomacy, timing, and ethics. Humans were learning about the galaxy silently, observing weaknesses and patterns that even the Council had ignored. The Council remained oblivious to the growing storm. They continued their raids, expecting nothing but submission from weaker species. Yet small incidents, ships disappearing, attacks failing without explanation, communications scrambled, began to unsettle some officers. Rumors spread that perhaps the humans were more capable than anyone had imagined. Still, the Council laughed, confident that Earth could never become a serious threat. On the Illyrian worlds, hope grew into quiet determination. Cities fortified, training intensified, and small resistance groups formed. Though still fragile and under constant threat, they now believed in the possibility of survival. The humans had not attacked yet, but their actions, subtle and deliberate, were a promise that help might come. Tension in the galaxy increased with each passing day. Human fleets moved silently. Illyrians prepared for the worst, and the Council unknowingly sowed the seeds of its own underestimation. No one could predict when or how humanity would reveal its strength, but the signs were clear. A small, young species was quietly preparing to challenge the order of the galaxy. The laughter of the council masked fear they could not yet name, and the Illyrians waited, hearts filled with cautious hope. As this chapter of events closed, the galaxy unknowingly entered a period of suspense. Humanity had not yet revealed its full capability. They had not attacked. They had only prepared, watched, and acknowledged the cries of the weak. The council remained arrogant, underestimating the planet they thought was insignificant. The Illyrians, for the first time in generations, believed someone was finally listening, and the silent war of preparation had begun. The council believed they had nothing to fear from Earth. Their fleets moved confidently across the galaxy, crushing weaker species with precision and cruelty. Then, without warning, human ships appeared. They did not fire immediately. They did not announce themselves. They arrived silently, invisible until their sudden presence disrupted the Council's coordinated strikes. In the first encounter, a fleet sent to destroy an Illyrian city found itself surrounded by ships that moved with astonishing speed and precision. Council officers scrambled, attempting to understand the sudden appearance of human craft. Every attempt to fire was countered with calculated maneuvers. Weapons were disabled, propulsion systems jammed, and communications severed. The humans did not destroy fleets entirely. They immobilized them, showing a control the Council had never anticipated. Human commanders spoke through secure channels, their voices calm and authoritative. They explained that the attacks on the Illyrian world had crossed a line that humans could not allow. There was no threat to civilian populations, no desire for conquest. The humans only sought to protect those who had been ignored for so long. The Council, initially confused, was forced to retreat, their officers arguing over how a small planet had managed such precise intervention. The news of the human arrival spread quickly. Across the galaxy, reports of these ships reached other species. Civilizations that had once been silent now began to whisper, wondering what kind of power this young world possessed. The Illyrians, seeing their cities suddenly defended, felt a surge of relief and hope. They had watched helplessly as the Council destroyed everything, and now someone had arrived to act on their behalf. Meanwhile, human scientists worked tirelessly to understand the Council's technology. Engineers analyzed weapons, propulsion systems, and communications, learning quickly from careful observation. Humans adapted rapidly, turning enemy strengths into vulnerabilities. They did not rush, did not act recklessly, and relied on strategy rather than brute force. Every intervention was precise, designed to stop attacks while minimizing destruction. The Council could not comprehend the human strategy. Every encounter left them baffled. Their fleets, built for overwhelming strength, were neutralized without suffering catastrophic losses. Officers began to argue over whether Earth was a threat or a fluke. Rumors of human skill spread quietly, causing unease in even the most confident admirals. The Illyrians began to organize more effectively, inspired by human intervention. They trained new defenders, reinforced cities, and prepared evacuation plans with renewed hope. Small acts of resistance became possible because humans had shown that careful planning and courage could change outcomes. For the first time, it seemed conceivable that the weak could survive and even fight back. Human fleets expanded quietly, using stealth and speed. Ships moved across multiple systems, monitoring Council activities and preparing for emergencies. Technology was adapted from existing designs, improved through observation and creativity. Each operation was executed without alerting the full Council, ensuring surprise and maintaining strategic advantage. Back on Earth, leaders monitored the impact of their interventions. They noted which strategies were effective and adjusted for weaknesses. The human approach was methodical and patient. They knew that outright war with the Council was not yet desirable. Control, precision, and intelligence would be more effective than reckless attack. Every human action strengthened their capabilities and their reputation across the galaxy, even if the Council remained unaware of the full extent of the threat. As the humans intervened, the Council grew increasingly paranoid. Incidents that should have been minor escalated into questions of competence and leadership. Officers whispered about a planet that should be insignificant, yet had demonstrated an unprecedented understanding of their tactics. Fear began to replace arrogance, though no one yet spoke openly. The humans were changing the balance of power, silently and decisively. The Illyrians, though still fragile, felt empowered. The presence of humans demonstrated that careful planning, courage, and intelligence could challenge even the strongest opponents. Resistance became organized, and hope replaced despair. They began to believe that they could survive, and perhaps even reclaim what had been lost. Tensions rose across the galaxy. Human actions, though measured, had forced the Council to reconsider its assumptions. Every fleet that encountered humans learned that strength alone did not guarantee victory. Intelligence, preparation, and moral clarity could turn even a young species into a formidable opponent. As this part concludes, the stage is set for a larger confrontation. Humanity has revealed its presence, protecting the weak without unnecessary violence. The Illyrians are inspired and strengthened. The Council, though still powerful, is shaken and uncertain. The galaxy begins to sense that Earth is not a world to dismiss, and a storm of suspense, strategy, and courage is quietly building. The Council was furious. The unexpected success of human interventions against their fleets had shaken the confidence of even the most seasoned officers. Determined to crush what they still considered a minor nuisance, the Council assembled a massive combined fleet to strike Earth directly. Their plan was simple: overwhelm the young planet with sheer numbers, destroy its fleets, and make an example of humanity so that no other species would dare defy them. Humanity knew the Council was coming. Their reconnaissance and preparation had detected fleet movements long before the Council reached their system. Cities on Earth and throughout its colonies were ready, every citizen involved in preparation, every engineer, pilot, and strategist contributing to the defense. The humans did not panic. They had anticipated this moment for years. Fleets positioned themselves strategically across multiple jump points, ready to intercept, delay, and confuse the attacking forces. Humans had studied the Council's tactics carefully and adapted, using deception, speed, and precise strikes to break the enemy's command structures. Their strategy was clear: disrupt leadership and communication first, leaving the fleet disorganized and ineffective without relying solely on brute force. As the Council approached, the humans made no secret of their presence, yet they avoided attacking civilian targets. Their goal was to protect life, not annihilate it. Every strike was calculated, every maneuver deliberate. The Council's overwhelming numbers were met with patience, not recklessness. Human commanders communicated calmly with each other, coordinating actions across vast distances, their control precise and deliberate. The first encounters were chaotic for the Council. Large groups of ships suddenly found themselves isolated, with communications jammed and weapons disabled. Officers were captured or forced into retreat. The Council fleet, massive and powerful, struggled to maintain coordination against strategies it had never encountered. Human actions were unpredictable yet precise, forcing chaos without risking civilian lives. On the Illyrian worlds, news of human defenses spread quickly. Citizens and fighters watched as their longtime oppressors were forced to retreat. Small acts of human intervention reinforced the belief that even the weakest species could survive with courage, intelligence, and precise action. The Illyrians trained harder, built stronger defenses, and coordinated better than ever before. They saw firsthand that humans did not act for conquest or power. They acted because injustice could not go unanswered. As battles continued, human strategy focused on breaking the Council's command, not destroying fleets entirely. Isolated leaders were captured, communications disrupted, and ships immobilized without causing mass destruction. Council leaders could not understand the calm, disciplined approach of humans. They had expected chaos, anger, and direct attacks, but instead found logic, precision, and strategic patience. Despite their overwhelming numbers, Council forces suffered repeated setbacks. Ships that should have easily destroyed human defenses were delayed, captured, or neutralized. Each victory, however small, shifted confidence and morale. Humans had not yet unleashed their full power. They fought with intelligence, ethics, and precision that made every move count. On Earth, the government monitored every engagement closely. Lessons from every encounter were immediately applied, strategies refined, and defenses strengthened. Scientists and engineers worked in coordination with military commanders, creating adaptive technologies that increased fleet effectiveness. Every citizen contributed, whether in production, logistics, or intelligence gathering. The planet functioned as a unified organism, each part working together for survival. The Council, for the first time, realized that victory by sheer numbers would not succeed. Their arrogance had blinded them to the ingenuity, patience, and intelligence of humans. Rumors spread among their ranks, officers whispering about an enemy that fought not for power, but for principle. The morale of the attacking fleet wavered, even as they maintained their numerical advantage. The Illyrians, inspired by human actions, began small coordinated strikes of their own. Though still weak compared to the Council, they gained confidence, knowing that humans were not fighting recklessly but with discipline and effectiveness. Together, humans and Illyrians demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and ethical action could overcome even overwhelming odds. The Council's combined fleet began to collapse under the pressure. Leadership was compromised, coordination failed, and retreat became inevitable. Humans did not pursue vengeance. Their actions were measured, focused solely on defense and the protection of life. The result was a stunning demonstration of strategy and morality. As Part 4 concluded, the galaxy was in shock. Humanity had stood alone, faced overwhelming forces, and emerged victorious without cruelty or unnecessary destruction. The Illyrians were inspired, the Council humiliated, and distant civilizations began to realize that the young human species was a force to be reckoned with. A storm had been unleashed in the galaxy, not by hatred or ambition, but by careful preparation, intelligence, and a refusal to ignore injustice. The suspense of the next chapter loomed large. Though victory was near, the galaxy was far from secure. Humanity had proven its strength, but the lessons learned in the conflict would ripple across stars and generations. A new era had begun, and all eyes were watching as the young species that had once been laughed at now shaped the fate of worlds. The Council had been defeated, their fleets scattered and leaders captured. Earth and its allies had proven that courage, intelligence, and patience could overcome the strongest forces in the galaxy. Yet humanity did not celebrate conquest. Their victories were not about domination or power. They released captured Council leaders, allowing them to face justice among their own species, and ensured that the weak worlds could govern themselves freely with protection written into law, not imposed by fear. The Illyrians watched in awe as humans demonstrated an ethic of power they had never seen: protection without control, strength without cruelty. Every captured Council leader was given a fair trial, and humanity guided the new systems of justice carefully, teaching that responsibility, not vengeance, was the path forward. Across the galaxy, news spread of the young human species that had fought not for empire but for justice. Many civilizations that had once ignored the cries of the weak now wondered what it would mean if humanity had always been present. Others, who had been oppressed, began to hope that change was possible. The human example ignited a quiet revolution of thought. Perhaps the galaxy did not have to operate on fear and cruelty alone. Earth and its people returned to normal life, though forever changed by what they had accomplished. Cities thrived, not because of conquest, but because of the unity and coordination that had been forged through preparation and struggle. Scientists continued to explore, engineers continued to innovate, and the Illyrians worked to rebuild their worlds. The bond between the species was subtle but strong, built on respect and shared survival, not dependency. As the galaxy adjusted to the new reality, distant stars carried messages from species who had once remained silent. They now reached out for guidance, not because humanity demanded loyalty, but because they had shown the power of listening and acting with purpose. Humanity's initial message, simple and unassuming, "We hear you," had become a symbol of hope and ethical strength. Far beyond the councils and fleets, another signal emerged from the darkness. An unknown species had sent a desperate call, seeking help against an unseen threat. Humanity did not hesitate. Lessons learned from battles and preparation guided their response. They understood the value of listening, watching, and preparing before acting. The human reply was already in motion, traveling across the void to offer hope where it was most needed. The Illyrians and other species watched silently, remembering how humanity had transformed a war that seemed inevitable into a lesson of ethics, intelligence, and courage. They understood, for the first time, that a single species, even a young and small one, could reshape the galaxy's moral compass through determination and careful action. The Council had been humbled, but more importantly, the galaxy had learned that silence in the face of suffering was no longer safe. Humanity had shown that listening mattered, that preparation mattered, and that courage could ignite change even in the darkest corners of the stars. Their actions were a warning and a promise. The weak would no longer be ignored, and injustice would meet careful but unyielding resistance. As this final chapter concludes, the galaxy stood on the edge of transformation. Humanity had not sought empire, had not sought revenge, had not sought glory. They had fought for what was right, protected the innocent, and restored balance with precision and ethical clarity. Their initial plea to hear the cries of the helpless had evolved into a storm that reshaped alliances, inspired civilizations, and challenged even the strongest powers to reconsider their arrogance. Far in the distance, signals continued to arrive, faint and desperate, asking for aid. And humanity, having learned the power of observation, preparation, and action, sent its quiet reply once more. It was simple, clear, and unyielding. "We hear you." In that moment, the galaxy understood that listening, caring, and acting with intelligence and ethics could echo farther than fleets or weapons. Humanity had become more than a young planet. It had become a symbol of hope, a force that proved that even in the vast cold of space, courage and righteousness could roar louder than fear and cruelty. The story of Earth and its allies had ended one battle, but it had begun an era where the voice of the compassionate, prepared, and brave could never again be ignored.